Hello and welcome to This is Metal with Joe Lawson. Our special guest today is Dead Daisies drummer Brian Tichy, who's got a long list of credits that we will get to, but he's also playing with Don Felder these days. How are you doing today, Brian?
Good, everything's cool. How you doing?
Yeah, and it's great to be talking. And of course, that is the big news these days. The Dead Daisies in August getting ready to release a best of album. I think it's perfect because, I tell a lot of people that one of the best bands to come out of the last decade is the Dead Daisies, and it's interesting because the band's lineup is constantly changing. They've gone through numerous singer changes, and it does not seem to affect the popularity of the band because the band and the caliber of musicians, including yourself, are just that good.
Well, thank you very much. That's all very kind. Yeah, there's been a bunch of changes, but I think there's always been changes in the band.
Sure, sure.
And I go, yeah, like why that could cause problems, with fans, right? If they're into a certain lineup.
Yeah,
But maybe it's because it's always been a few years before change, and it's never been the whole band's changed at once. It's
yeah.
it's like, okay, Brian's not there, or so, Dean Castanova's in, or Karabi's gone, Glenn Hughes is in, or you know Fortis and Dizzy left, and that was because of Guns N' Roses tour. We got Doug
Yeah.
Aldrich. So there's always been like the majority remains the same, and somebody swaps out or whatever.
It's kind of like a fraternity. Isn't it nice that you left for a few years and like just last almost a year ago, you rejoined the band.
Yeah, that worked out nicely after a couple years of a pandemic, and which just sucked for everybody. But for them to call me back and go, "Hey, next year, 22, you want to come in and come back in, do a record, and go tour?" And at that point, it was David Lowy, the founder, Doug Aldrich, and Glenn Hughes, and I've played with all the guys, but it was great to get in there with that lineup, and actually the first thing we did was jump into new music and record. I thought that was a fun way to start it off.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how great to get to play with the legendary Glenn Hughes.
Yeah, Glenn's awesome. We've known each other since, man, like 1994.
Wow.
I was in this band Pride and Glory with Zach Wild and
Of course.
James
Yeah.
Amenza, and Glenn came into our dressing room after we played, and we were on a festival with him, and he was really kind. He's like, "Oh, you guys sounded great." That's when we met. But then we did like a weekend of shows together and a bunch of rehearsals at my house for Glenn Hughes solo shows on the East Coast back in like 2001. So we've played together full Glenn Hughes sets of music, and that was a long time ago. And we've done a couple jams here and there, and so it was like just to get in with the guys was you're not going into some kind of unknown situation. I just went in like, cool, it's going to be great to play with friends and do this for the year.
Yeah, and I love the fact that, the first single off the best of is Make Some Noise, and you guys shot a great video for that. I always thought that was a great rock and anthem, and, so it's finally getting, maybe a little more attention than it did when it originally came out.
Oh, well, well, hopefully, I know they had it. Their publicist, or this sports publicist guy, they've been using for a long time, Fred. He's been very helpful getting that into sporting events and
Sure,
stuff.
sure.
Which I don't know how much over the years, but I know we all were in New York doing rehearsing or something, and we all went to a Yankees game, and they cranked that in between like AC/DC, Metallica, and stuff. It was really, which we kind of wrote it with that whole thing in mind. Like, let's just write some big, simple, caveman type song that's just
Yeah,
just to
yeah.
get people rowdy. So yeah.
I'll let you go, Joe. Anything you want to ask Brian?
Yeah, with the changes in singers between John and Glenn, do you guys still play a variety of the material, or does Glenn focus on more of the stuff that you guys wrote with him?
With Glenn, when I came in, they already had done two records. What? No, wait, one record with Glenn, and they released one.
Yeah, there's so a total of two records with Glenn.
It was two records without me. One with Karabi without me, and Dean Casanova was on that, and then the next one with Glenn and yeah, and Dean. Yeah.
And Brian, the last one, Radiance, do you play on that, or had that already been recorded by the time you came back?
No, that's what we did last year to start the year off. You know, we did the whole Radiance thing. But but yeah, so I think what they do, you know, since Glenn had, we have a new record to support when I'm in the band, and the other one before I was back in, you know, there was a whole batch of songs from those two records that we do with Glenn. Of course, a couple Purple songs, and then we did a chunk of Karabi era songs as well as even maybe there was a song or two that Karabi wasn't on prior to him when it was John Stevens. Yeah, so you know, which is the logical thing to do. You know, it's like, you know, the Sammy Hagar had to sing "Jump" and "Ain't
Yeah,
Talking
yeah.
About Love," and you know, you really got me, even though that's a cover. But I'm just saying, um, yeah. So it's pretty seamless. There's no real, you know, there's no problem with any of it. You know, it's like okay, but I do think you know with Glenn with singing, they're totally different singers. You know, they're
Yeah, yeah.
both great in their own way.
Right.
And then Karabi being back in now, he's doing some Glenn stuff. So he's got to kind of work it for what fits his voice and his style, you know.
Sure.
And luckily for me, I'm the drummer.
Sure.
I just play the drum beats, you know.
In fact,
Right.
Brian,
Speaking of that, Brian, didn't you play on an album with Robert Mason and George Lynch redoing some Dokken songs back in the day, like a modern version of some drop tune Dokken stuff?
Oh, I don't know. George has put so many things out, and I've been on a bunch of stuff with him. I don't think I did that one with Robert Mason. I know what you're talking about, but I've done
Tooth and
other
Nail,
things
I
with him.
think. Yeah,
What's that?
Tooth and Nail, I think it was called.
Yeah, but that wasn't like a just Robert Mason. There was a lot of different artists on that. They did read. I think Robert's on that. We did redo Dokken songs. I think Sebastian Bach sang on one. You know, Robert Mason. But yeah, that was Tooth and Nail, which was ultimately called T and N because
Yeah,
there was some Tooth and Nail band or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
But yeah, that was a while ago.
I think Joe, you might be thinking he at one time was in Lynch Mob. He was a drummer for Lynch Mob.
Yeah, I did a. I think I've done a couple. I've done a couple Lynch Mob records, and over. I mean, that's also been over. That's kind of pops up and goes away, you know, and over the
Yeah,
years. So
yeah.
there was times I
That's
don't
where I
even know if I
remember
was.
your name from. I remember that. I remember that record or seeing that record and with your name on it as they were redoing some of those. Robert said it was cool to get a chance to put his own spin on doing some of the Dokken material in a different way, you know. So
Well, I
Yeah,
know Brian played also with Whitesnake, Billy Idol. I mean, Foreigner. He's been all over the place.
nice, nice.
yeah. Well, that's been doing it for a long time, so I'm glad that there's, you know, that it's, you know, it's
And
got me
Joe, you might be
good
interested to
places.
learn that he's equally talented, accomplished musician on the guitar as he is a drummer. I mean, of course, he's primarily known for playing the drums, but he's quite a gifted guitar player as well.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
In fact,
What do
let
you
me
think
ask
was your
you,
most
Brian.
challenging project, Ryan?
Most challenging?
Yeah.
Oh, well, as long as you have time to prepare,
Yeah,
then it's they're all similar, you know. The
sure.
challenging things are when you don't, you know, when you get called to do something with not much time to prepare, and which is rare, you know. I think one of a challenge might have been that was a little more. I probably didn't have to make it as much of a thing as I did, but when I filled in back when there were two Queensryches and Jeff Tate was still kind of calling his thing Queensryche, and they were
Yeah,
doing.
yeah. Okay.
I filled in for Simon Wright for like a month, and then the next year a few weeks, and which ended up to doing recording with Jeff Tate on his Mindcrime records. Uh, but anyways, he played the whole Operation Mindcrime top to bottom, the whole
Wow.
LP, and then a bunch of hits after, and I guess I could have went in there and just learned the songs and played, but I did my homework and made my charts and my notes and listened back to the original versions, listened to what Simon Wright was doing, listened to what Scott Rockenfield had done live, you know. And so but I figured as far as the fans that are hardcore into
Or
that,
yeah, yeah.
they're going to want to hear what they know, which was the record. So I really tried to stick to Scott Rockenfield's parts from the record, even if he had changed them live or whatever, or Simon may have changed them. I really tried to, respect that, and I hope that that showed to the fans because that meant a lot to me. Because if people are going to go see that whole record played, and just I heard it when I was a kid. I hadn't heard the record in decades, but refamiliarizing myself with it, it was fun, and yeah, it was. I guess that was a challenge because you just want to nail that stuff every night, and you don't want to like, hey, I could play this or that or do this,
Yeah,
but I really wanted to stick close to Scott's stuff, So when you do things like that, that's a little more challenging.
yeah. And I see you sitting there with the guitar. Are you working on anything now? Or you just kind of practicing, getting ready?
I have guitars all over the house, and where I sit here at the kitchen table, there's a little Black Star practice amp and this badass Eddie Van Halen
Yeah, I see
guitar, and I got a BC Rich bitch
that.
um,
Yeah.
that was in a fire that I had a few years ago in the studio house I lived in, and it was
My
really
God,
pretty
it's
bad.
totally wow.
Well, if you look closely, you can see it's still totally, this one, luckily, I just had to clean up. But if you look, I don't know, it's all
Yeah.
mangled
Oh
on the
wow.
binding, but it's still all right to play. Like it's not that annoying. But yeah, like it's melted. You can
Yeah.
see what's melted here.
Yeah.
It's all discolored, but it still plays good and everything. The electronics work. But anyway, so I just always have guitar sitting around, and um, it's just there's no
I seen
reason
one
not
of the
to have
videos on
it.
YouTube. You were playing or practicing to I'm the One, and man, I think you might have had that guitar, and you had
Um,
it hooked up to a 5150 amp. Man, you got all the
That's that last year. My buddy, badass keyboard player Derek Sherinian, he's a
yeah,
keyboard player, but we talk more. He's more into guitars. Guitarist. We were constantly talking Eddie Van Halen. He started learning Eddie solos
yeah,
on his keyboards. So I started. One thing led to another. Oh, let me check the solo out. And I'd learned some Eddie over the years, but it's been a while since I really tried to
yeah.
dig in. So we both started digging into the solos, and going back and forth. Oh, what do you think he does here? What do you think he does here? And it led me to go, this is great. I'm learning these little routines and licks and things that Eddie, that reoccur in Eddie's
Yeah.
playing, and it was opening up my playing just to be, just taking phrases that he does or
Yeah.
wide interval licks and just his picking patterns and stuff, and I absolutely love him. So after doing that a little bit, I ordered this guitar, and I was like, I really want to feel what that
I mean, there's some of this to be said for being technically precise, but you look at a guy like Eddie, and I've heard stories where he couldn't even read a lick of music, but yet look at what the career that guy was able to have. I mean, he was a master at his instrument.
oh yeah, I could go on forever about Eddie, but maybe he didn't know exactly all the stuff on guitar, but he
Yeah,
was, trained on piano, and he
of
was
course. Yeah,
awesome. I mean, he wrote amazing songs on the keyboards
yeah,
and stuff.
that's what matters. Yeah,
I think a lot of that from doing that since he was a little kid when he picked up the guitar. I think that those a combination, two things happened. His fingers were strong already from playing, they're not the same muscles on, piano compared to guitar. Because if I sit, I suck at piano, but if I really, really bad, I can't play piano. I just don't understand it. But if you try and do stuff, you can feel all these new muscles being worked. But I still think somehow it all intertwined. And then even the two-hand tapping, I think it was just maybe in his head, just because of piano and
sure.
being, so prolific and so, kind of forward thinking. I think he was the guy that said, well, wait, if I take that sound and approach from a piano, put it
Yeah,
over the guitar, it
yeah,
works, and it kind of
yeah.
it rewrote the book of rock guitar.
And talk about the book of guitar, but I mean, do you have a favorite Van Halen album? Like, if you point to say I think that really defines who Eddie was.
Well, I love the first six with Dave. I
Yeah,
absolutely love all of them. I know them top to bottom, like on drums and stuff, and I know a lot of it on guitar. Probably not exactly, but
yeah, yeah. Well enough.
chunks of, yeah, chunks of it. And but my favorite, man.
That's hard. It's like which is your favorite child, right?
Well, I usually would say Fair Warning.
Yeah,
I love Fair Warning. That was when I really got into them when I was a kid that came out. But I love, yeah, I love them all. I love '84. But the one I do love that most people go, oh man, that's the dud. of the first six is Diver Down, but I was so into them when that came out. I love the production. I
Yeah,
love the record top to bottom. I mean, I don't
Every
care.
sounds awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a great
I
album.
mean, the original, but if you look at the story behind it, it was like they put out Pretty Woman to as a single just to keep their
Yeah.
name out there, but it was a hit, and the label goes, "You got to get a record out. We got to get on tour. We got to follow this up." Where they thought they were going to have a break, so they jumped in the studio and Eddie, okay, we got Hang 'Em High, we got Secrets, we got Full
Dancing
Buzz,
in the
little guitars.
streets. Yeah.
But I'm saying we got these originals, yeah, but they stuck some covers on there. But I love the Van Halenized version of the covers. I love Where Have All the Good Times Gone, which is a Kinks song. I prefer Van Halen's version. I just like they changed the riff a bit. I just love the attitude, the attitude of those guys playing together and the way they sound when they play. Um, they can do no wrong to me. So yeah, I guess fair warning. But man,
Funny you say that
Van Halen
because
2's killer. Children, Women, Children First, man.
That was Eddie's favorite album I hear, and a lot of the guitar players say fair warning because it was so dark, and
Yeah,
heavy.
yeah, totally. And I guess it was, they had So This Is Love, and they had
Yeah,
Hear About It Later, which are definitely more on
yeah.
the radio friendly type songs. But yeah, it's maybe a darker overall vibe, but man, it's
Yeah,
still Van
I gotta
Halen.
say, for me, Women and Children are up there too because I mean that's just I think a great solid rock album.
Yeah, well, the all six
Yeah,
are, yeah.
yeah,
Van
no
Halen
doubt.
too, yeah, the whole thing. So yeah, that I'm a huge Van Halen fan. That
Yeah.
was, it's like Zeppelin, Van Halen, Aerosmith, Kiss were like probably in Rush were like the biggest bands for me as a kid.
So that's the guitar geek in you coming out. How about Alex Van Halen as drummer? How big of an influence was he on you?
Huge, huge. It's for me, it's Bonham, Pure, Van Halen. That's my top three. It's always been. Uh, it changes after that. Like, oh, I
Yeah,
love
yeah, yeah.
this guy, but it's for like just for influence and
Yeah.
what I took in as a kid, which stays with you.
Oh,
There's
sure,
so many other guys I've gotten into over the years, so many other amazing drummers,
of course. Yeah,
but yeah, I love Alex. I love his playing and yeah, I mean I could go on forever
yeah,
about
yeah.
Alex.
So how about you, Joe? Anything else you'd like to ask Brian?
Yeah, since you play guitar, do you write any of your own stuff? Are you working on an album, maybe a solo record or something else?
Yeah, I've done stuff that yeah I've done quite it's years ago, 20 something years ago, the end of the 90s or whatever. I had a band where I was playing guitar and singing, and it was just I always wanted my own thing, and I just started to try it myself. And ultimately, it was called Ball. The band was called Ball. It was a trio thing, and I recorded it all myself, did it all myself in like '98 or whatever, and it got signed to a Japanese deal. Came out the demos became a record,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was released in Japan. Then I got a US deal and redid everything, wrote a couple new songs, re-recorded everything, and it was an independent label. But there was actually back then some money involved. It was
I
still
remember.
unbelievable. But yeah, we made the record, and we had the artwork ready to go, and we were mastering. And Gilby Clarke was producing because Gilby and I were in Snake Pit in the '90s, not '95. That's where I
Wow.
met
Yeah.
Gilby and Slash's Snake Pit. So he had a studio, and he said, "Hey, that's how it all started. Oh, if you want to come over and track a song or two, I have drums set up and I'm studio." That's how it all started. First time singing and putting my own full vision of music down, and uh, and then I went in the studio with him and knocked out a bunch of drums at another studio. Got a bunch of demos together. So Gilby was around with me for those years when I was doing all that, and anyways, we did it all, and the label started. They had distribution problems, and it all fell through. Record never came out. I tried a little after that, and then had kids, and I was
Would you ever
playing for that.
consider re-releasing it as a special edition, maybe for like an anniversary or something?
No, no, it is what it is. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like it's a little thing that barely
Plus, you got these
anybody
other
knows about.
gigs like with the Dead Daisies and Don Felder. So, how did you hook up with Don Felder? And that's pretty cool.
Oh, he actually heard the drums on the Whitesnake record I did back in 2010. He went over to Doug Aldrich's place and he's like, "Oh, those drums sound cool. Where'd you do them? Who's playing?" And Doug's, "Oh, it's Brian Tichy, our new drummer. We did it at the studio." And Don called me months later and said, "I'd like to go back to the same studio you recorded those drums at, and the same engineer and the same drum set and record my stuff." And we did. We were there for a week, and that's how I met him. 6 years later or so, he called me, "Hey, you available to do gigs?" And we did a bunch of gigs in 16, 17. And we didn't play until maybe last year. A couple times they called me, I wasn't available. And he called last year, and I've done a bunch of gigs with him last year and this year, and then
Nice
there's
to be on that list, huh? Of people to call. I mean, um,
Don's awesome. The set's killer. It's like it's a whole different style of drumming, compared to what anybody might say. Oh, Brian plays like this and he's in these bands. Don's chill. It's you don't. I don't want to be seen. I don't make a big deal about the drums. I play the parts and just make it feel right. And it's an
and of
amazing
course, this
set.
is his solo material. But do you guys ever throw in a couple Eagles songs from the set, or
Oh, it's mostly Eagles. People go see Don Felder, and he'll put a new song in. He'll put a couple
that's cool.
the song Heavy Metal, which is a Don song, and a couple like deeper tracks like Those Shoes, and but it's a lot of Eagle stuff, and he closes with Hotel California. Can't go wrong with that. Yeah. So and
So,
he's a killer.
uh,
He
yeah,
still
and I
plays
know
great.
that, like I said, the Dead Daisies. I know you guys getting ready to release a new best of next month, and the tour kicks off. I mean, are you? When do rehearsals start? Have you done that yet?
Yeah, we did some rehearsals in May just to get us all reacquainted, and we have some coming up. Like a week or so. We'll be back in New York to go through everything again. And then the tour starts August like 21st shit, well, second gig's in Jersey. I think it starts in Philly or outside of Philly. It's a East Coast, bunch of East Coast. Then we go to Canada, through Canada and down, finish up at the Roxy in LA.
Oh wow! And so, what's it like been having John back again? It's kind of like fraternity. You got these guys come in and out of the band, and that's got to be cool because you already know each other. Probably like just like the very last gig you guys played together.
And we've all known each other for so long, so it really is it's just, yeah, just walking into a room playing music with your friends. It's really that simple. We just all happen to be, employed by the Dead Daisies in this band, but over the years we've all done so many different
Yeah.
things together. John, I put this thing together a couple years ago, right before the pandemic hit. So that was like February of 2020. I
Yeah.
booked a gig in Vegas. We were called the Bootleggers. The Bootleggers, we played Aerosmith's live bootleg, top to bottom, and Crosby was the singer. And that's because we all grew up on live bootleg. And John flew in from Nashville, showed up at my house. We all did a rehearsal, drove to Vegas the next day and hit it. And that was the last time I saw him, actually. But yeah, it was great because that's just the record. If you guys don't know live bootleg from Aerosmith, it's it's probably my favorite live record, right there with Kiss Alive and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Exit Stage Left. Song is the same. So we all just got it and we just played the whole record top to bottom and a bunch more Aerosmith. So yeah, we always, one way or another, we're always crossing paths.
Yeah. That explains it because I seen some photos on your Facebook page. Like I was checking out the photo section, and you had some stuff like where it looked like you were in front of it, like doing this Aerosmith thing. So okay, so that's what that is. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, that was my first Aerosmith record. That's the record I played to
Yeah.
incessantly as a kid. Just so I know it
And I got
inside
to
and out.
tell people, as far as Mr. Brian Tichy here goes, that you got to at Christmas time check out his Merry Tishmas Christmas CD. Some great rock and Christmas tunes on there.
Oh, that was what I was going to bring that up when he asked me the other question about guitar stuff. Yeah, somehow I don't even really know why, but I just did an instrumental Christmas record. It was all guitar based and played everything and all the instruments and picked out my favorite, 10, 11 Christmas songs and just went for it throughout the year. And but I wanted to make it, didn't want it to be like this hard rock metal thing. I
Yeah,
wanted to just be able to fit in like whatever station you're listening to or whatever
yeah,
Christmas songs are going on. I just wanted to be able to fit in, not be like, oh, turn that down. That's a heavy metal Christmas song.
yeah,
So I did it more just to have fun with the actual music, the
yeah,
Christmas music
yeah. And Joe, as I was sharing with you before we went online today, that a couple of years back, Brian he created this thing with the speed bag. Uh, he's very much more than just a musician, a drummer. He's a showman, and I sent you the video. It's very entertaining, and it shows you how much thought he puts into his performance.
punch drumming. Yeah.
Yeah, that's control and everything. That's talent there.
Yeah,
I always loved the speed bag. I thought everybody did, like kind of like just like watching somebody go and I finally set one up in my garage and just went for it. Like this is like 2008. I remember I was on tour with Billy Idol and we were sitting backstage and I literally just typed in speed bag in YouTube and I saw these freaks come up that are now my friends. Speed bag and elbows, reverse, all these moves, and I was like, what? And I went home and just little by little started working it and I got really into it. Like just put a lot of time into it. But being a drummer, it's all rhythm. So I would instantly hear the rhythms. and practice along the music. So it'd be like literally. It got to the point where Eddie Trunk called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to play drums?" And like we always have guitar guests on that metal show. Do you want to play drums? We're gonna do some drummers. And I said, "Yeah." And it was at the same time the Speedbag, this boxing equipment company, Balaz, contacted me. They saw my videos, like, "Hey, man, we should do something together." I go, "I'm playing on that metal show. If you want to get me some type of Speedbag stand platform that's heavy enough so I can put it with the drums, I'll put it on the TV show. I'll put it next to the drum." So they sent me this 275, doesn't matter the pounds,
Yeah,
270 pound. I'm saying 75. Who cares if it's 270 or
yeah, yeah.
275? And they sent me this thing. I set it up and brought it on that metal show. I just made up a couple beats playing the Speedbag while playing the drums, you know? So that was, I guess that's a first for anybody that really cared.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool.
That's
A
awesome.
drummer getting an endorsement for a speed bag. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's where I first seen that was on that metal show when you did that. So I wanted to bring that up because it's amazing. You got the kind of attention you did, but deservedly so.
But I mean, if you think about it, if you don't know anything, I love the art of speed bagging, the advanced bagging. It's not like I'm not a boxer. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
all
yeah,
that,
yeah.
but it's just it's a workout, and but it's more the rhythm and the accuracy and the control. I just love the control chaos of it and the sound of it, and it's just the advanced moves. But if you take the basic speed bag punch, it's a triplet. You hit it, and it's like 1 2 3, 1 2 3 1. So if you put that, get it, get it, get it, and you got the rest of your limbs to go get it, 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 get, and you can just go from there.
Brian, I don't know if you're at liberty to, yeah, I don't know if you're at liberty to discuss this and all. I know on the new best of, there's a couple of new tracks. Can you at least tell us, are these previously recorded that they were never released, or are we allowed to talk about?
Yeah, I think it's two. Doug Aldrich and I just did an interview together where he knew the answer. I wouldn't have known. Like I wouldn't have. I just haven't seen the final like
Track listing?
artwork or track listing or whatever. Or if I did, I kind of spaced
I
it.
didn't
But
remember. Yeah.
it's two songs from the sessions we did last year with Glenn Hughes. So,
Oh,
we
cool.
did. I don't know, there's whatever, 10, 11 songs on the record. Maybe we recorded 15 or 13 or something, but it's a couple songs that we did record and finish and mix that just didn't make the Radiance record.
I love that. Especially as a Kiss fan, they used to do stuff like that. Like on a live too, you'd have like the 4 new studio tracks. I dig. We're getting a great best of, reminding us of all the classic tunes you guys did, but getting a little something extra. I dig that.
Oh yeah. I love side 4 of Alive 2. Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully get a music video for those tracks. But in any event, I'm curious, is the track listing the best of? Is that kind of going to be the set list, or are you guys going to mix it up a little?
I think it's definitely going to be close to that. It's
Yeah.
going to have, they're definitely playing a couple songs from the very beginning of the Dead Daisies and then go through the Karabi into Hughes and into, Karabi Hughes stuff. Yeah, it's definitely addresses a couple songs from every record.
Because I got to tell you, like I seen the advertisement, the press release for the best of, and impressive track listing, I will say. And I went back and checked out some of the John Stevens stuff that's going to be featured on the best of, and I think it's cool to include that too because like I didn't really become aware of you guys till the Karabi era, but I was impressed with some of those tunes, and I think a lot of people who buy the best of, they're going to go back and check out the earlier stuff as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you're into a band and you got a record, you go, hey, cool. We'll see what else they have. The cool thing is, if you get a Daisies record that's got Glenn Hughes on it and you like it, and you go check out a Karabi version, it's not going to be like, oh my God, they're doing this whole different style of music. It's just it's power rock. It's power
And I
rock.
think that's what's great about your new best of is that it features every era of the band. It doesn't just say, okay, we're going to just focus on the Karabi era or whatever because he's back. I love the
Well, I
fact
don't. That wouldn't be a best of then. They
yeah,
got
yeah,
to
I agree. Yeah,
10 years. You got to cover it all to cover the 10 years, and yeah, so that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
And anything else you want to ask Brian, Joe, before we wrap it up for today?
What are you looking forward to most with the future with Dead Daisies and everything else that you got going on? I mean, is there something in particular? I mean, obviously the Dead Daisies is the main thing, but anything else that that's coming up that you're excited about?
Well, I'm always excited about the future because we don't
Yeah,
know exactly what's going to happen. So that's always I look at that as a positive. You know, like I always look like it's going to get better. Everything's
I
going to
love
get.
that.
That's
I love that.
all.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have to. You know, you always. I always. Everybody should look at like, okay, if I've done this or I got here, or I wasn't here at one point. Now I'm here. Well, then who's to say this is it? You know, you get like. I mean, people achieve insane amounts of greatness on this planet, and I don't think that's actually meant for everybody because if it was that easy, then it wouldn't be special, right?
yeah,
You know, but you have to think if you don't try to get there, you'll never know. That's why if certain decisions are made in people's lives, you know, if I stick to this, I got this going on, that's cool. Change it up a bit, things could change for me. And I don't know, it might get more difficult, I might get better, but what do I want?
yeah.
Where do I want to see? So yeah, the Daisies, we've got a bunch of touring coming up this year. I have a bunch of it worked out between the Daisy schedule that Don Felder asked me to do some gigs at the end of July and then a run in August. It's all in between, you know, Daisy's rehearsal and the tour. So it worked out. I was like, cool, man. It's because, you know, with Dawn, I pop in and out. I'll do some gigs and I'll won't be there. Then I'll do some gigs. But to do an actual run where it's this, you know, you get to, you know, dig in every night. It's more fun because it's sitting in your head. It's more fresh. You know, it's more, you know, you're
Yeah.
not having to think as hard. You're playing.
Must be nice to be at that place in life where don't have to really worry about getting a gig like you're
That's
on
not
Don
true. No,
Felder's list.
no,
Hey, I
no,
can
no,
call
no.
Brian if I need him.
No, no,
Yeah,
that's not true. That's not true. If it looks that way, that's cool, but you never know. Like you could get 10 calls at once about stuff. I guess you know.
yeah,
It seems to me I see other musicians maybe aren't like you know a founding member of a band, like I'm more
yeah,
of a hired gun, and they're always working. But and maybe somebody looks at me and goes, "Oh, he's doing this and that." But there's times where like I need work or I want to work or calls don't come. It's there's no. It's nice to have a track record. It's nice to have a decent resume, right? You know that helps
I think
because
that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, yeah,
you know and so if somebody goes, hey, who's available? Who can call? Hopefully your name's out there as some kind of like you know decent drummer, you know. Like, oh, he's done. Oh, he's been in this band and that band. Well, he's proven himself. That's the main thing is proving yourself in these different bands. So that already gets you you know the door opens to that because you have
yeah,
proven history of doing this, and I've been doing it a long time. But it still doesn't mean the call is going to come in. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It doesn't mean that you know just because you're home and you're not working, there's going to be you know.
I love that attitude that you have, Brian. So we want to thank you for taking time to do this. Love to have you back one day, but you take care, my friend, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, guys. Cool.
Take care. Bye bye.
All right.